Future Trends is brought to you by the Institute for Economics and Peace.
Welcome to the latest edition of Future Trends, the weekly briefing on the changing face of global politics, economics, development, social and conflict. Here's this week's headline stories. What is DeepSeek and why is it disrupting the AI sector? Rwandan-backed rebels enter Congo's Goma in major escalation. Oyster blood helps antibiotics kill bacteria. Here's the latest stories in politics. Rwandan-backed rebels enter Congo's Goma in a major escalation. The rebels marched into eastern Congo's largest city, Goma, and the UN said they were supported by at least some regular Rwandan troops. It was the worst escalation of the long-running conflict for more than a decade, as Congo also cut ties with Rwanda. Trump orders US exit from World Health Organization. President Trump said the Global Health Agency had mishandled the COVID-19 pandemic and other international health crises. Gabon announces April 12th presidential election. The military currently rules the West African country following a 2023 coup. The announcement comes after the adoption by Gabon's parliament of a new electoral code, which sets out the rules and conditions for organising elections in the country. Ireland appoints new PM. Michael Martin became Ireland's Taoiseach, or Prime Minister, for the second time after the vote formality was delayed repeatedly in the wake of various arguments and protests between the government and opposition parties. South Korea's President Yoon indicted for insurrection. It comes after President Yoon last year attempted to impose martial law. Insurrection can be punishable by life imprisonment or death, and the top court has 180 days to determine whether to remove Yoon from office or reinstate his powers. Now to updates in conflict. Ukraine replaces key commander after Russia captures another town. Brigadier General Hnatov was replaced as the battlefield commander for the Eastern Front after Russian forces captured another strategic town in the most heated battlefield of the Ukraine war. Gaza residents start to return after hostage breakthrough. Tens of thousands of Palestinians began moving along the main roads leading north in Gaza, as Israel opened roadblocks after the militant group Hamas agreed to hand over female Israeli hostage Arbel Yehud and two other hostages. Another ship suspected of cable sabotage. For the fourth time in a year, a ship has been accused of dragging an anchor under power and cutting a subsea cable in the Baltic. And for the fourth time in a row, the vessel in question has a visibly damaged port anchor. The bulker in the latest incident, the Vezhen, beneficially owned by a Chinese company and en route to Russia, was seized by Sweden on suspicion of aggravated sabotage after a cable outage between Gotland and Latvia. Anti-FICO protests build in Slovakia. Around 100,000 demonstrators in cities across Slovakia demanded that their government stop flirting with Russia and respect the country's obligations toward its Western partners in NATO and the European Union. Russian spy ship entered UK waters. The Royal Navy monitored a Russian spy ship after it entered UK waters about 70 kilometres off the British coast. The UK government said the foreign vessel, called Yantar, was a Russian spy ship used for gathering intelligence and mapping the UK's critical underwater infrastructure. Turning now to economics. What is DeepSeek and why is it disrupting the AI sector? Chinese startup DeepSeek's launch of its latest AI models, which it says are on a par or better than industry-leading models in the US at a fraction of the cost, is threatening to upset the technology world order. The release of OpenAI's ChatGPT in late 2022 caused a rush among Chinese tech firms to create their own chatbots powered by artificial intelligence. DeepSeek's AI assistant has now overtaken ChatGPT to become the top-rated free application on Apple's App Store in the US, raising doubts about the reasoning behind some US tech companies' decision to pledge billions of dollars in AI investment, including Nvidia, whose shares have been hit. Bloomberg covers US climate dues after Paris exit. Billionaire Michael Bloomberg said his foundation will step in to fund the UN climate change body after President Trump declared the US would withdraw from the Paris Agreement for the second time. Bloomberg's intervention aims to ensure the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change remains fully funded. Nigeria admitted as BRICS partner. BRICS was formed by Brazil, Russia, India and China in 2009, with South Africa added in 2010 as a counterweight to the group of 7 leading industrialized nations. Last year, the bloc added Iran, Egypt, Ethiopia, and the United Arab Emirates. Turkey, Azerbaijan and Malaysia have formally applied to become members. Nigeria becomes the 9th BRICS partner country, joining Belarus, Bolivia, Cuba, Kazakhstan, Malaysia, Thailand, Uganda, and Uzbekistan. Bank of Japan raises rates. Norway plans cut. The Bank of Japan raised its key interest rate to about 0.5% from 0.25%, noting that inflation is holding at a desirable target level. Recent price data shows inflation hovering at about the central bank's 2% target. Norway's central bank held its policy interest rate unchanged at a 17-year high of 4.50% and maintained plans to start cutting borrowing costs in March. Sahel states' unified front in ECOWAS negotiations. Niger, Burkina Faso, and Mali are due to withdraw officially from the grouping of West African states in favour of a global approach to negotiations and relations with ECOWAS. The 3 countries announced their plans to leave the bloc a few months after formalising their own grouping, known by its French acronym AES. Moving to stories in development. Possible links to paid criminals in antisemitic attacks in Australia. Police are investigating whether foreign actors paid for some of the spate of anti-Semitic attacks in its 2 biggest cities, Sydney and Melbourne, including arson attacks on synagogues. Prime Minister Albanese said Five Eyes, Australia's security alliance with the US, the UK, Canada and New Zealand, was assisting. Trade, tariffs, AI and UN chief dominate Davos 2025. UN Secretary-General Guterres increased his warning about climate change and said the world's thirst for fossil fuels is a Frankenstein monster that spares no one, while calling for greater attention to risks posed by artificial intelligence if its ascent goes ungoverned, even as some leaders played up its promise. Ultra-fast cancer treatments could replace radiotherapy. A pioneering new treatment promises to tackle a wider range of cancers, with fewer side effects than conventional radiotherapy. It also takes less than a second. Oyster blood helps antibiotics kill bacteria. Respiratory bacteria attach to the surfaces of the lungs, and they secrete a coating that forms a lining and stops antibiotics getting in. Research found compounds in oysters disrupted the formation of biofilm and bacteria, settling on internal surfaces, making it between 2 and 35 times more effective at killing the pathogen. How serious is Mozambique's financial crisis? Mozambique's international bonds tumbled after a news report that the new government in Maputo is weighing up a debt restructuring following months of post-election turmoil. And finally, the latest stories in social. Giant iceberg on crash course with island. The iceberg is spinning northwards from Antarctica towards South Georgia, a rugged British territory and wildlife haven, where it could ground and smash into pieces. It is currently 280 kilometres away. Coral bleaching in Great Barrier Reef at catastrophic levels. More than 50% of affected corals monitored near an island in the reef's south were killed last year during its most severe and widespread bleaching yet. In 2024, the Australian reef experienced its worst summer ever, as soaring ocean temperatures caused the reef's 7th mass bleaching event. South Sudan suspends social media platforms over killings videos. The 30 to 90-day bans came after videos depicting the alleged killings of South Sudanese nationals in Sudan's El Gezira state triggered riots and deadly revenge attacks. Customers of mobile operators MTN South Sudan and Zain would not be able to access Facebook, TikTok, and other platforms for up to 90 days. Blooming plant that reeks of rotting garbage pulls crowds. Tall, pointed and smelly, the corpse flower originates in the Sumatran rainforest. The rare unfurling of an endangered plant that emits the smell of decaying flesh drew 20,000 fans to a greenhouse in Sydney, where they joined 3-hour lines to experience a momentous, stinky bloom. Solar backpacks helping kids to read. Solar energy stored in backpacks is being used in rural Tanzania to power a reading light so that children can read after dark. Last year, Soma bags, or reading bags in Swahili, sold 36,000 solar backpacks to people across Africa, providing an invaluable energy source for when the sun goes down.
Future Trends is brought to you by the Institute for Economics and Peace.